That's why it's really important to have a plan and understand what your goals are.
In fact, my camel out there is suffering right now with a broken back.
So I actually found Pepe when it was only a couple of hours old, and I'm like, oh, this is a funny meme.
Oh my god.
Yo! Who is this degen?
The old man is swing trading over years at a time. And it's like, that's where the real money is made.
The answer is a permanent loss. With single-sided staking, you don't have to worry about a permanent loss.
When really, at the end of the day, it's just the matter of a macro market. It's just what happens.
If you're aware, if you're disciplined, you can hone that into further financial growth.
Financial freedom, so we can actually live life and not have to be constantly living paycheck to paycheck. I mean, that's the ultimate goal, more or less, right?
Good evening, ladies, gentlemen, and D-gentlemen of all ages. Welcome back to the book club here on the D-Gen Roundtable. My name is Zenith, and I'm joined by my excellent co-host and also book club member, Mr. Will. How you doing, buddy?
Oh, that's me. I'm doing pretty good, broski. How are you doing? Life is fantastic. I just finished a drive back up to my house from my first half week at work. I've been just doing orientation and OSHA 10 for the last 3 fucking days. So, yuck,
Nice.
OSHA. But dude, it's a really cool gig. Lots of cool people. Biggest company I've ever worked for. 60 fucking people. So remembering names, I've got like a little notebook and I've just been writing people's names down in it. It's a good time. It's real fun. But job is an hour and a half away from my home, so I basically just live out of my truck for a week and then come home and I'm here for the weekend and do that sort of stuff. So it's kind of like my little holiday special. But life is good, man. Life is great. I listened to this book and there's a lot of great points in here. A lot of fun little topical political things for the timelines and whatnot. It's very 2024. But
yeah.
decent enough book. How are you? Before we get into the book though, how are you, broski? No one ever asks the host how they are. I know because I'm the host all the time. So I'm asking you, since you're the host, how are you, bro? What's new and exciting with you?
I'm doing well. Not a whole lot new going on. Just hanging out. I guess the newest, coolest thing for me is I finally bit the bullet and bought a nice poker table mat because I'm looking to maybe have some friends over this weekend and play a little Texas Hold'em. Nothing crazy. Maybe like $5-10 stakes. Just because I don't know. I like the actual like playing the game. The gambling part really isn't the whole thing that gets me. If you guys haven't figured it out by now, I really enjoy just games, and that's what I do. So
yes,
that is what I got going on. Outside of that, got a little bit of golf in the future, and then I do have an unfortunate announcement. The local ice rink is performing maintenance in September.
Oh no!
When our final game of the league was supposed to be, so they rescheduled it to Sunday at 6 p.m.
Oh shit! So you're gonna be missing the news then. Oh, you can do it, bro. You fucking go play your ice ball game.
Yeah, I just feel bad because it's like I'm now put in a situation where I'm leaving one of my teams hanging, either the hockey team or the DRT.
Bro, hockey is definitely way more important than DGen Roundtable. Go get your sweat on, bro. Go smack some balls or some pucks with some sticks. Go like get greasy and just fucking hot towels on naked butts in the locker room. You know the deal. Like we can't do that here. We can't smack each other's ass over a good game. All that we do is like talk about the FOMC and whatever. So and plus you're here now. So it's like we do this streaming thing 3 times a week. So missing one of them or fucking missing a couple of them, it's no big deal, man. It's all voluntary.
Fair enough.
And plus,
I guess
if they're counting on you way more, and if you're not here, then that means I can do a shorter stream, which means that I can, or I can do campfires, or I could just bullshit with the audience and I'm drinking some homemade wine right now, some homemade Killju. So it's I could just get toasty and schnockered and not have to. It's much more low pressure when I'm all by myself because it's like, oh shit,
I get that.
I don't have to worry about making a good show for Zenith and Brendan. I have to fucking do it myself. I don't know if Brendan's going to be around, but we'll see. So No pressure. Go play your sports ball, dude.
Yeah.
Hell yeah.
You and I have very different approaches when it comes to the solo show because I've done some, and I'm always worried about like dead airspace, and then I'm always worried that I'm either rambling or I'm just like reading off the screen too much. But that's probably
Well,
just
I mean,
me being in my own head. So at the end of the day,
yeah,
I've gotten good feedback on the solo shows, and they're like, yeah, it was good stuff. Covered a lot of
yeah.
information. They do tell me to slow down when I talk. That is a
You
comment
got to
thing.
give yourself what is it? Give yourself permission to make mistakes and whatnot. Also, like, I think you're much more introspective than I am. Like, I just don't give a fuck. So
That's fair.
if there's
Honestly,
dead,
that might be the better way to do it.
yeah. And I know that like I'm pretty good at just filling dead air with mindless prattle, and I'm always monologuing anyways, so it's like it's not the end of the world. And plus, the audience deserves a little bit of a pause every now and again. So
I see what you did there. Cheeky.
yes, I did. You
Anyways,
know
this
what else I did is
final
I left the chat shoutouts thing. Keep talking. I can still hear you. I gotta go grab
yeah.
the chat shoutouts paper.
I guess is my final note about the hockey stuff. If anyone
Uh-huh.
has any complaints about me playing too much hockey now, myself included, the person to take that up with is Nuclear Herbs. He was the one that encouraged me to take the leap and get into beer league. So here we are.
Don't you go passing the buck on to good old Chuck. That was all your own damn fault.
I know. No one twisted my arm to spend like $500 on hockey gear and then go try a new sport in my mid 30s.
It's not new though. You've done it before, right?
I've done like recreational ice skating. I've never actually like played.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's
Oh shit.
dude. It's an entirely new way to do like hand-eye coordination with like puck handling, and then also just the balance on the skates and skating is just entirely new as well. It's so much different than just going to the local rink and just skating around turning left the entire time. Turns out that when you've been doing that for a lifetime, you very much have a strong side and a weak side.
Something
And you
to
gotta
be
work on it.
mindful of when you're on the rink is watching out for bloodborne pathogens from other players' gloves. This is another thing that I did today. For
Yeah.
those of you guys familiar with the ANSI standards for like dealing with people when you come into contact with injuries and stuff.
You ready for this
Oh,
one? So last week you were pretty perplexed by who does project management. It's an
yeah.
institute. What is an institute? A group of people that got together and did a thing, and then eventually people recognize them as experts.
Yep.
ANSI stands for the American National Standards Institute.
Yep.
It is another one of those. They are just
Oh,
a
yeah.
group of people that make standards, and then everyone's like, "Well, I guess we have to follow it now."
Yeah. Yeah. It's not like ANSI's got ANSI cops that roam around everywhere and like
No.
arrest people for not abiding by the standard. It's just like a fucking, oh, OSHA says we like that. And so if you don't do it, we'll charge you money. And it's like, oh, well,
Yeah.
whatever.
Fair enough. Alrighty, sir. Enough dilly-dallying. Let's get to it. You got the thing?
I got the thing. Ladies and germs, it's time for the chat motherfucking shout outs. The best part of the show.
There
Part
we
of the
go.
show. We
All
get to
right.
interact with you. I should make some copywriting for that. We're 425 shows into the DGen Roundtable. I should definitely have something to say when I pull up the chat shoutouts.
425. My God.
Yeah,
Ooh.
bro. I don't. You weren't. Oh fuck, you weren't there on Wednesday. Yeah. If you look up at the number, like on the show title, I went through the YouTube channel and I numbered every single one of them. So
That is a
now
lot.
kind of. Yeah. So I left some of the numbers on the Sunday shows, but like I figured the only numbers that are super important are the book club ones. But yeah, we've done 425 live shows, broski. 425. And that includes my little 5-minute hello, goodbye. We're not streaming tonight. See you later. Love you, bye. You know.
Okay.
So, but it's like it's still, dude. That's a shit ton. A shit ton. 3 shows a week. That's 150 weeks. That's 3 years of streaming.
Accurate.
Yeah, and that's not including our pre-records. So we did a lot of pre-record shows as well. I think we got 45 or 47 of those. But yeah, man, enough from me. It's time for the folks at home. You've got the folks at home. Who we got here?
Yes, sir. Number one DGen of the evening, and a very special shout out to this guy on this episode of Book Club. It's Mr. Moonpill Rational Optics. He says, "Cheers, gentlemen." Cheers to you as well, sir.
To you, good sir. Also, Moonpill, if you want to join the stream, I put the link because I know you said you were thinking about joining the stream for chatting about this one because you was the one that suggested it. If you want to join the stream, the StreamYard link, you know what? I'm gonna put it in the fucking comments. If you want to join the stream and chat about this particular book that we're talking about, click on in, broski. We would be more than happy to have you. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Oh,
yes,
dude. Is YouTube not is YouTube showing regular names again? Oh no, it's not. I was about to say we've got. I thought that it had his name without the number at the end of it, but I was looking at the wrong thing there. So I was about to say YouTube's back to showing regular names, but nah, they ain't doing it. But yeah, welcome. Good to see you, Moonpill. Good, an excellent suggestion, by the way, with this book. This is a good one.
absolutely. Up next, we got Centurion 54X, aka 54 Cent himself. Says, "What's up, DGens? Good to see you, sir, as always." We got KRJ Crypto in the house saying, "Whoop whoop." There we go.
Whoop, whoop.
I like it.
It's been a while since we've seen KRJ, and I don't know if you're speaking tower tech, but that's definitely something that we say on the tower. You know, whoop, coming up. That's how you. Back in the days before radio, you would scream off the tower, whoop, as loud as you could, and that meant like come up with whatever the thing is that we're picking up. It's like start winching up on the cable or whatever. And then when you hear like 2 bangs on the tower, that means bring it down. So
there you go. I dig
yeah.
it. Alrighty, up next, bit of a fan favorite here. Funkmaster Hex says, "Ladies and gentlemen, good evening from the lake."
Ooh.
Oh, we got a little boozing and cruising tonight, good sir.
Nice.
Like, very nice.
Nice.
Very
good. Good to see you, Funkmaster Hex.
Yeah, he's also saying hockey is the best.
Mm-hmm.
Hear me out. I think I'm converted. It's so much fun to play, and I do enjoy watching it a lot more than pretty much anything else that's outside of UFC.
Yeah.
Pretty much any other sport. I'd rather watch hockey. Yeah.
Man, I don't know. There's some pretty entertaining sports out there, like
Widely televised in the United States. How about that caveat?
curling. Curling is pretty fun. We're gonna throw a rock at a circle. Oh, he's throwing the rock at the circle. The rock's going towards the circle. Oh, it hit the circle. Quiet on the greens.
Alrighty, Hexagon Lost in Asia coming in here saying, "What's up, DGens?" with the 07. Salute back to you, sir.
What
Always
is
happy
up?
to see you.
That was good timing. You and I fucking had like good cadence on that salute. That was a good proper military fucking dot hold dot fucking.
There you go. Who is my team? My team is the NHL team that has now signed the most expensive player contract in NHL history at $18.8 million per year for Macklin Celebrini. That's right, the very soon to be captain, in my opinion, of the San Jose Sharks. I've started following them kind of like for the meme because they were always just like pretty bad. And then there's this one like absolute stud player they picked up from the draft who's just like dragging the team to the occasional victory, kicking and screaming. But I got to say, the guy had a killer performance in the Olympics on Team Canada and showed that he really is hanging in there with the best of the best. And he is being rewarded as well. And yeah, Sharks are going to be good. I think the Sharks are being really good. They made some aggressive trades in the offseason. And I think with Macklin at the core, you got Will Smith, you got Eklund in there as well. They can build some solid lines. And by God, Macklin is just a machine. I guess as a little bit of context for Will, Macklin Celebrini is 19 years old. He played in the Olympics, had like 5 goals, numerous assists in the Olympics, on top of coming off of a season where he basically nearly tied the record for the most points in a senior in a season by like a rookie, next to Wayne Gretzky and Sidney Crosby.
Ooh,
so the
I
dude
know
is
the Wayne
like,
Gretzky name.
Yeah, he's like a once in a generational talent, and it's awesome to watch.
Okay. I gotta say, my favorite hockey team is the 1974 Washington Capitals. Those are my favorite hockey players. Is those guys? That's my favorite
Caps,
team.
baby. Caps are fun. True.
That is the single worst hockey team that had the worst season ever recorded in hockey history, with a dismal 867.5 record, with a .131 winning percentage, the lowest in league history.
Oh my God.
They lost 39 of the 40 road games and allowed 446 goals total. So
That's a lot of goals.
Go 1974 Washington Capitals. That's all for you guys. Oh, we've got some more chats. Shout out to Arceus.
Arceus coming in here. By the way, hope you're doing well. Thanks again for hopping on last show. That was an absolute blast with you. For everybody that did not see that one, we had an excellent time with the little 3-man crew again. It was a blast, and we're always happy to have you. Arceus is saying hockey is the funnest sport to play. 100% biased, though. Agreed. I am also 100% biased, and I am right there with you.
I don't know. I think pole vaulting is the funnest sport, but that's because that's my bias. So
yeah, there you go.
That's my. Maybe you could do a combination of hockey and pole vaulting. Maybe there's a world where where some assholes, instead of a hockey stick, they got a big fiberglass pole, and instead of getting a puck into a goal, they have to vault into a goal. And when they get themselves in the goal, then that's considered a point. I could see it. I can't see any problems happening from that. Nothing quite like sharp blades on a fiberglass pole.
God, I was trying to find a clip, but I can't find it. Anyways,
of what?
Rollerball. I was going to make reference. It sounds like we're just progressing towards this.
Oh, Calvin ball is what we're progressing towards slowly but surely.
Yeah, eventually. Sure.
Yeah.
Alrighty, tell you what. With that being said, that is it for the chat shoutouts. If you guys haven't, yes, Funkmaster X coming in here, fewest wins ever for 1974, and yeah, Macklin Celebrini had like 40%. He was part of 40% of the goals last year, which is a ridiculous stat, by the way.
It's a lot.
Getting into the book. So,
oh yeah, that's what we are here for, isn't it?
That is what we are here for. All right, everyone, give a very warm round of applause to Moon-Pilled Rational Optics for the fantastic recommendation. The book we are covering is Suicidal Empathy by Gad Saad. If I believe correctly, this book was actually released post-2025 because they make a reference to the new Department of War as opposed to the Department of Defense. So it does date it a little bit there. But Gad Saad famously was one of the people that really was outspoken during the old COVID times back in 2000, wrote a book about it, and was ostracized by the intellectual community, namely the health establishment as well. So he's definitely been involved in the culture wars, shall we say. The overall book itself, I will admit this is probably a little bit of a departure from our average topics because this one very much gets right into the core of politics and what's going on today. And a lot of the debate that's going on right now around various topics, whether it's government, governance, immigration, even taxation, all that kind of stuff. So we do get a whole chapter on taxation, which is, our bread and butter over here as well. That's the financial side of it. But overall, for the book, the thesis pretty much comes down to this. Empathy is an evolved human virtue, but like any adaptation, it has an optimal range. When empathy becomes detached from reality, reciprocity, and long-term consequences, it transforms into suicidal empathy, a form of compassion that ultimately harms the individual or the society extending it. He argues that many contemporary Western institutions reward moral signaling over evidence-based reasoning, leading people to prioritize appearing compassionate even when the resulting policies are, in his view, self-destructive. That is the thesis of the book. And honestly, I think that this does not just talk about the United States, but largely it applies to the West in general. And when we're talking about the West, we're talking like pretty much like Americas, Europe, bits of Asia, Australia out there.
The 5 countries that all spy on each other.
Yeah, pretty much that right there. That's a good way of putting it, actually.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
If you're a country involved in the Five Eyes program, then congratulations, you're the West.
Yeah. The way that the author lays out the book is going through kind of like the logical steps and then also giving a lot of case studies about what's been going on over the last like 20, 30 years about how things have really been pushed too far towards this idea of being empathetic in decision making at large scales that create bad incentives, ultimately kind of destroy the bedrock of society, and then also, most in particular, harm individuals in very specific instances. So you get the whole spectrum of it all. But as far as the train of thought about how we arrived at this point, the author draws it back to the 1960s when a lot of postmodern ideology was coming out. This is kind of the stuff that's like moral relativism and the idea that like you can't ever truly know anything. So how can you judge anything? And it just very quickly leads down this like rabbit hole of nihilism. Eventually, it starts in the institutions, really breeds in the institutions, making its way into the general population as the rise of college happened. And then after that, where's my timeline? And then after that, we get into spreading it through education, journalism, professional institutions, and then it really explodes at the advent of social media. And that dramatically amplified a lot of the moral signaling and the emotional contagion going on. And then pretty much 2015 to present, this is where they're largely talking about how institutions are reinforcing these things, and then it's made its way to pretty much the highest level of corporations, governments, and any sort of cultural institution. So goes from small idea to just kind of this thing that has really infiltrated every last part of society effectively. Alrighty, with that being said, let's get into a little more details of the book. So we start off with the good virtue going bad. The author begins by distinguishing between healthy empathy and pathological empathy. His central analogy is that empathy resembles medicine. Too little empathy produces cruelty. The proper amount enables cooperation, and too much or misdirected empathy becomes destructive. He introduces one of the key ideas here, which is Aristotle's idea of the golden mean. It's basically everything in moderation, arguing that virtues become vices when they're taken too far. The examples are given is that if you start prioritizing criminals over victims, if you start creating policies that ignore incentives, and if you start using emotional reasoning instead of true cost benefit analysis. That's pretty much the central core work for the rest of the book, and it's that right there, the golden mean. That's one of the key ideas. Number 2, we have forbidden knowledge. The author argues that certain factual claims become socially unacceptable regardless of their empirical support. He defines forbidden knowledge as information suppressed because it conflicts with prevailing ideological narratives rather than because the information itself is actually false. Stuff like this includes censorship, academic censorship in particular, cancellations, politically sensitive scientific research, and reluctance to discuss controversial findings. This is something that has been one of the major critiques of academia and a large part of societal institutions over the last 50 years, because really we only had peer-reviewed research and printings and stuff as kind of a basis for scientific credibility since the 1970s. So it's a relatively new phenomenon considering how old the scientific method is itself. And as a result, this is one of those things that's kind of become very much corrupted by the suicidal empathy. Number 3, we got cultural theory of mind. The author criticizes what he sees as the tendency to explain nearly all human behavior through culture while minimizing biological influences. The author's pretty much making the argument here look, you've had a lot of evolutionary pressure going into you. Things that are coming out of culture in the last 50 years are not going to replace all of that. In fact, they're probably either enabled by it or deeply at conflict with it. The author argues that humans possess evolved psychological tendencies, biology and culture interact with each other, and ignoring the evolved predispositions leads to unrealistic social expectations. He contrasts evolutionary psychology with what he views as dominant academic approaches, emphasizing social constructionism. That's one of the things. Another one is the idea of the blank slate, or tabula rasa, to give all my sociology nerds a shout out up there. Which, by the way, is number 4, blank slate felons. This chapter attacks the blank slate theory of human behavior. Blank slate human behavior basically argues it is the core opposition to the idea of nature versus nurture thinking, which is that are you born with certain personality, psychological, mental, physical things about you, or are you entirely shaped by the world that you do exist in, and that theoretically, had you taken any different path at any different point, you would end up as a slightly or almost entirely different person. The author argues that assuming all behavior results solely from the environment causes society to excuse criminality and offenders, diminish personal responsibility, and treat harmful behavior primarily as victimhood. He appeals this reasoning to discussions of crime, radicalization, and violent behavior, arguing that excessive contextualization can undermine accountability. Number 5, we have settled science versus taboo trade-offs. A little shout out to Thomas Sowell right there. Everything is a trade-off, baby. The author argues that many policy debates avoid acknowledging inevitable trade-offs, just believing that it's only upside. He criticizes slogans such as "the science is settled" when used to discourage discussion, arguing that science is inherently provisional. Policy choices involve value judgments beyond scientific findings, and that every intervention creates costs as well as benefits. He
True
encourages
science.
explicit consideration of opportunity costs and unintended consequences. Number 6, we got selling indulgences. Uh, the borrowing imagery from medieval religious indulgences, the author argues that many corporations and institutions engage in symbolic moral behavior to signal virtue without solving underlying problems. Examples of this include corporate activism, DEI initiatives, performative allyship, and public moral signaling. He contends these actions often provide social status or reputational benefits while imposing costs elsewhere. Chapter number 7. This one's titled Govern Me Harder, Daddy. This chapter critiques growing public willingness to accept governmental control in exchange for safety or moral certainty. The author argues that citizens increasingly outsource the responsibility, they favor regulation over personal agency, and they seek protection from risk and offensive ideas. He views this as psychologically connected to dependency and paternalism rather than resilient citizenship. Number 8, we're almost there. Last chapter, inoculation against suicidal empathy. This last chapter is, if you kind of just want to skip all the backstory and just get to the proposed solutions, this is where it all is right here, this one chapter. Final chapter proposes what he sees as the antidote. His recommendations include prioritizing truth over emotional comfort, cultivating intellectual courage, demanding free inquiry, evaluating policies based on outcomes rather than intentions, and then balance compassion with reciprocity, and embrace evolutionary psychology as a framework for understanding human behavior. He argues that empathy should remain an important value, but to be constrained by evidence, incentives, and long-term societal sustainability. There you go. I guess as your final recap, the major themes from the book were empathy requires calibration. You got to do it right. Truth should precede compassion. Biology matters. Personal responsibility is essential. Civilizations survive through reciprocity, aka balanced generosity with self-preservation. And then lastly, virtue signaling can distort institutions. Basically, if you're trying to just, instead of trying to do the thing you're trying to do, you're just trying to appear good, you're no longer doing the thing you're trying to do, which just makes everything worse. Alrighty, that is what we got for the summary. Will, was there anything that really stood out to you as interesting ideas, little oddballs in there? What do you got?
He had quite a few he had quite a few opinions that I thought were interesting as far as like useful quotes. One of the things that I thought that he said that was quite interesting is that most great cultures die by an act akin to suicide rather than murder, meaning that like most cultures wear themselves down to the point where they fail rather than they're taken over by some big sweeping bad guy. Most of it's just small little baby steps of poison, decline until it eventually like collapses. Like we've taken too many beams out of the bridge to go and like build our own little home wood projects, and finally the bridge collapses, sort of thing. So I thought that was quite interesting. And then him also talking about like the male and female preference towards capitalism versus socialism, and how it kind of like it relates to the whole like masculinity is about war and femininity is about love. Like women are more concerned with equality, and men are more concerned with like not equality, but like what you put in is what you get out, not necessarily that everyone feels good. So I can't think of the word for that, but he did a pretty good job, I think, in the book describing that sort of notion. And so that was just something I was thinking about as I was going through it. Those are my favorite parts of the book. Yeah.
Those
what
are
about you?
good.
Did you have a favorite part?
I really like the taxation bit, because I think the
Oh.
author really hammered home a point that I think people like me can definitely get lost in arguing over like very specific interest rates and like very specific policy. And
Yeah.
it's very easy to focus in on like you are getting like just for instance, like the top federal tax rate. That's the big one. It's the big one that everybody sees, and they have to pay on April 15th and all that kind of stuff. But the author's point of it's like, yes, you can argue over specific tax rates, but from the other side of the coin, instead of looking at it from top down legislature, if you look at it from bottom up, which is what is your average daily experience, and just calculating all the various taxes that go into it. I think the author said on average, like I think in the United States, your total tax burden is about 50% of your total income.
Yeah.
And unfortunately for our author friend here, he was living in Canada for a while there, and he said that his total tax burden was upwards of like 60%.
Yeah, his income tax was 50%, and that included the sales of his book outside of the country in Canada, like things that he sold outside of Canada. Like Canada taxed it as if as if it was happening in Canada and under their jurisdiction and stuff. Is like because he is a Canadian and he sold books in Paraguay, you know, they get a little slice of that pie, or they don't get a little, they got half of it. And so like, and then he was talking about like his teaching salary and how like because it's paid by the government, it's just a fucking joke, like the minimal amount of compensation he gets, and just like back when he was a professor anyways up in Quebec. And by the way, I misspoke in the last podcast. I thought he was in Toronto. He's up in excuse me. He was in the Quebecois. So that's where he was originally from. But yeah, for the folks at home that didn't know, by the way, Gad Saad is Canadian dude. You know, born in Lebanon and then emigrated over to Canada as a child during the like the great terrorizing that was happening in Lebanon from Israel or from somewhere, Palestine. I don't fucking know. But you know, people do be beating up the Lebanese. So he's a Lebanese Jew that moved up to Canada and became an evolutionary psychologist. Just a little bit of background, but yeah, man, the taxes stuff. Like when people stop seeing a reason to work because they're just taxed so fucking much, then it's like, the fuck am I doing giving like 60% of my time to a government that I don't like and I don't agree with? Like it's like the mafia dude's coming to your house and he's taking over half your shit every time he visits, and it's like sooner or later something breaks and something's got to give. So it's amazing that they've been doing this for as long as they have. And my understanding is Alberta is carrying Canada. Like they're the only province that is like net positive, and because of that, they have to pay they have to like they have to subsidize the other provinces who purposefully make less money, so that way they don't have to subsidize any of the other. So it's just this really like parasitic system up in Canada. And like having been up there and having visited, like I can totally see it, and I can totally relate. Like just talking to the folks on the ground, like the garbage guy behind my buddy Marco's shop, like because I went up there and I visited a machine shop. And like just talking to the people up there, just every blue collar dude is just so fucking depressed, and they're pissed off, and they're like, but they're also very polite about it, and because they're Canadian, and it's like they're lovely people, and they feel trapped and they can't go anywhere because they're all like, all my family's here and I can't move to America and yada yada yada, and like I'm paying just as much taxes as I'm using to live, and it's just like, golly, man, like something's got to give. And then to top it all off, Canada, like over the last I think 2 years, they imported 6 million Indians from India, and Canada's only got 30 million people in it, and so they basically imported like a fifth or slightly less than a fifth of the country's total population of just foreigners. And they're starting to force cultural change in Mississauga and like the little suburbs around Toronto. They're like erecting religious statues that have nothing to do with Canada, and they're not assimilating to Canada. They're bringing their bullshit with them, and like, anyway, I don't want to get like crazy into it. The point is like Canada's kind of fucked, and like I hope they can turn it around, and I hope they can fix it, because they're a beautiful, wonderful, friendly neighbors to the north. And perhaps Mr. Funkmaster Hex or who are our other Canadian friends, Mr. Fast Abdul or
The brothers,
Yellowcake,
Brother
or the
64?
Brothers 64. Yeah, maybe they can opine on some of this stuff. But from what I understand, like Canada is is not doing so hot economically and culturally speaking. The people are tired and pissed off, and I mean, I don't really know. It's nuts, man. It is
Yeah,
nuts.
you're not wrong. At the end of the day, this is two Americans talking about a book written by a Canadian, and he
Yeah,
goes in on Canada and very particularly Justin Trudeau as well.
yeah. All I can do is
Really gives
parrot
it the
his
business.
opinions. Really, like
Correct.
I don't know much other than what I saw while I was up there and what the people up there told me, and what Gad speaks in the book. And man, Gad, he's very opinionated in the book. I was like, I rolled my eyes a lot while I was driving and listening to this book. I was like, golly, shut the fuck up. But like, I get your point, bro. But like, stop whining. So the book struck me a little bit whiny. But yeah, I don't know. What did you think?
I get that.
Was there a tonal interpretation from you from the book?
When I was listening to it, so I happen to think that I am someone that's pretty tuned into the news cycle, and I
He
have
also
been probably for the last decade.
he also read his own book, so that's worthy of note as well. So
There you go. Yeah, I listening to this, it almost kind of felt like the greatest hits compilation, or rather, all the worst things that have happened over like the last 10 years. Just as just a quick reminder of all the terrible stuff that's happened. It's like life kind of sucks when you think about it this way. It's like,
yeah,
man, we really are conquered people if all this stuff's going on. But
yeah,
it's not the entire picture, but it is definitely. I think the author is trying to present what are the most pressing issues of the time. And again, this is a v- very deeply political book, just because, in my personal opinion, in the current day and age, culture and politics and entertainment has absolutely been merged pretty much since like 2012, maybe even 2008, I would argue. And part of that, I think, is the political cycle, and Barack Obama really becoming one of the first presidents that like utilizes like celebrity status, but also at the same time, that's precisely when social media got really big, and when smartphone technology just went through a massive boom, allowing anybody to just get online and just say whatever they wanted, which just really increased the cycle of everything going on. But overall, from the book, I think that he does a pretty good job of laying out the logical train of thought about like how we got here, what exactly is going on, and then also proposing like some solutions that are actually thought out and data driven and stuff like that. But I think honestly, part of this book, I think maybe part of the author's goal was to kind of do one of the things that he was talking about, which is like the intellectual courage and demanding pretty much like free presses and to stop censorship and stuff like that. And by doing so, through the book, he's talking about these things that are culturally taboo and blasting it out on the airwaves.
yeah,
So I understand what you're saying, where it does kind of feel like a lot of whining, but
yeah.
I think
Well,
there are some legitimate complaints that are in there as well.
yeah, and like at the end of the day, whether you agree with his emotion or not, like what he's driving towards in the book is just the general idea that like something that can be virtuous has a breaking point,
Yeah,
where like if your emotive preferences become too detached from like wisdom and fucking reciprocity and self-preservation and shit, then it turns this thing that could be like a powerful tool into like a dangerous fucking hole that you're putting into a boat and making bigger or something. So like that's really what the book is about. All emotive stuff aside, all whiny language aside, it's the idea is that like empathy can be powerful when used correctly. And the problem is when overextended, which is what he argues the West is doing a ton of, broadly speaking. Um, when you overextend it, then it starts becoming incredibly destructive. So,
yeah. Let's start at like the very foundation here.
mhm.
So the author does argue that empathy can be a good thing when used properly.
Yeah,
In your opinion, what do
for
you
sure.
think to argue authors for is like the good case for having empathy in like small interactions, small scale, maybe large scale a bit? Where do you think he draws the line?
Well, having empathy at a small scale is important because that's how you build relationships. Um,
Yes.
but it's a get a person out of the hole so that way they can get back to doing good things. So like you use empathy to get someone out of the hole, whatever the hole is. It's almost like, you're like people aren't always going around breaking glass. They only break the glass to get out the fire extinguisher. But if you're going around everywhere breaking the glass when it's not an emergency, then it's like, the fuck are you doing? Like you break the glass to get the fire extinguisher and you use it when it's important. And it's like it's important to have empathy when someone's like in distress, when they're in like genuine distress and they're having a bad time. And that's like a one-on-one thing. Now, culturally speaking, um, if you start expressing empathy to big gigantic groups of people, it's not like it's meaningless because you're or it's not meaningless, but it's less useful because it's an idea against an idea. It's not like if I'm being empathetic to my son, then I'm building a relationship with my son and I'm strengthening that interpersonal relationship between two people. But if I'm a nation and I'm being empathetic towards another nation, then like fat lot of good that does the starving people. It's like, okay, maybe I teach you how to like it. The problem is there's too much giving of the man a fish and there's not a lot of teaching of the man how to fish. Um, and that's like the misapplied empathy is where you give the man a fish and now he's like, oh, I can get free fish from this guy. I'm not going to learn how to fish. Why would I learn how to fish when I can get free fish? Give me more fish. Oh, you didn't give me fish? I'm going to stab you now. You know, like it can turn around. So, like it applies at the small scale level because it's meant for interpersonal relationships. It's meant for person to person. It's meant for like something that's small and meaningful. And when you start applying it at scale, it becomes less meaningful. It becomes more of just like it could be like a signaling thing, like a person signaling like, hey, I'm a good person. Look how much empathy I'm giving out. And it's like you're measuring the wrong thing. Measuring empathy rather than measuring the result is the incorrect way to go about things. So like if when my child stabs himself in the face and I'm like, oh man, that looks like it hurts a lot. Damn, I feel for you, boyo. Like you don't measure the fact that I'm talking nicely to the child. You measure the fact that I'm able to calm the child down, and then the child like fixes himself and pulls himself out of a sticky situation. That's the thing that's worth measuring. It's not like, oh, look how cool that person is by saying nice things. And that's what people today are measuring when they use this empathy in a suicidal manner, as Gad is saying. And it's like it's not even purposeful suicide; it's like accidental suicide. So, um, empathy's important like when applied at an individual level, and it's much less important like when it's applied at a societal level, and you have to be much more strategic when you have way more variables involved. Like person to person, there's much fewer variables than nation to nation, so or culture to culture or something like that. So I don't know. That's my take. What do you think? Did I miss the mark? Do you have a different thought?
No, I think you're pretty close. I I'm not saying you're wrong at all. I'm just
Mhm.
probably thinking a little more technically about the question. If I had to break it down, I think the author really defines a good case of empathy based on kind of like three basic principles. Number one is very uncomfortable truths that we're not allowed to say anymore. Empathy is very useful for building relationships and ultimately building community.
Mhm.
And then third, I think one of his larger points, which is that reciprocity is a necessity when it comes to utilizing empathy properly.
Yeah.
First and foremost, the uncomfortable truths, the taboos he's talking about, saying that people are different. It's just something you're born with, whether it's literal, like physiological, it's in your DNA, or it's cultural, and that there are major differences between many different groups in the world. I think that as part of this, he also definitely kind of goes towards the fallen world ideology, which is like the world is a chaotic and messy place, and that everyone's trying to find their way through it. It's not that like everyone holds hands and sing kumbaya. It's more of it's a very realistic and sober take on reality. Harkens back to kind of like the John Locke, Adam Smith kind of stuff of like nature is brutal and harsh, and men build society to try to create a small walled off space where you can live as civilized beings. Those are the uncomfortable truths as the basis for this. Second is empathy is building everything from relationships to community. It's just like you said, like familial bonds, direct like parent and child bonds, that kind of stuff. There's a lot of empathy that goes into it because it builds trust and it also helps raise the next generation, which is
Hmm.
necessary if you want your civilization to exist.
Yeah.
The reciprocity aspect, I think, is a very important one here, which is that it's pretty much the difference between living in a high trust versus low trust society. I think the author would agree with this statement,
Yeah.
which is that if you expect and you believe and you know that empathy is it's given both ways. It's back and forth. It's not just one direction because that's just a taking relationship. That is the thing that allows you to actually be able to extend the empathy on like the logical, rational, mathematics side of it, which is you are making a negative EV play, action, whatever it is, because you see some benefit outside of the immediate and direct thing that you're going to get back out of it. Whether it's like giving money to the local community to like raise money for like whatever cause is going on, or just even helping people out whenever you can, especially if, like, as you said, like people pulling people out of the depths, out of the well, that kind of stuff. The reason you do it is that there's a reciprocity there. Even if you're trying to help someone out of the dumps, the expectation of the reciprocity is that they will reestablish themselves as a productive and also empathetic person within the community to help give back to it, which is like you are giving up a lot of stuff in the present to help this person, but you're expecting that in the long run, it's they are going to be beneficial to the culture and community, maybe not even in the same amount of value. But also what it does is it helps set the precedent or the kind of like the cultural narrative that this is what we do. We help each other, and then if you are helped, you help back. It creates a feedback loop that ultimately improves on itself. But without that reciprocity, what it shows is that it really is a zero sum game, and you just got to try to like take advantage of people's empathy and take as much as you can with giving as little back. That's the difference between having the functional communities and the dysfunctional communities.
And
Those are the three cores that I think the author really argues here.
he gave that prisoner's dilemma example of like the different strategies you can use where there's like the tit for tat, and that was the most effective, like, of everything. It's like you presume to be nice to the other person until they're mean, and then you do exactly the one meanness back, and then if nobody's mean, then everybody like what you give, what you get kind of deal. I saw a comment here that I think is fun. We've got Miss Arceus saying empathy is tricky because it can be very hard to actually understand someone else's viewpoint, unless, of course, you have that gun from the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. Absolutely. Shout out to Douglas Adams, and shout out to Mos Def and Martin Freeman and Sam Rockwell and Zoe Deschanel and everyone else. Alan Rickman in the Hitchhiker's Guide. Man, what a great fucking movie. I watched that recently. It's so fucking good.
Will, do you know one of the great debates about Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy? And it's
Huh.
a classic.
I would love to hear the great debate.
It is the have you seen the movie or have you read the book?
Both.
Because the people that
Multiple
are
times.
you've done both? I've
Oh,
only
yeah.
seen the movie, and I
Oh,
know that I need to read the book at some point.
have
So
you
that's
watched
probably
any of
going
the
on the
TV
book club
show?
list. I
Oh,
didn't even know
man.
they had a TV show.
Oh, it's super old. It was like 1970s or 80s or something, but
Was it
a
like
BBC.
BBC?
Yeah.
There.
Yep. But tell me about your thoughts. Definitely watch the movie before you read the books. It'll be much more helpful.
Well, too late now. I already saw the movie, so I can't go back.
Mhm.
But yeah.
Yeah, watching
As
the movie before reading the books is the winning play in my mind. But tell me your what is the great debate?
Oh, it was the movie versus book. That was it. People argue what is the better version.
Oh, well, that's subjective. You can't measure subjective things. Let's put it on a chart. Let's do a market analysis. Fucking get some candlesticks going. I think they're both fantastic in their own right.
Fair enough.
The movie is wonderfully entertaining, and it's a fun story. And the series I've only watched a little bit of, but I would go back and check that out a little more. But I would definitely consume both, movie first and then the book, because if you read the book first, then the movie might be like, this is boring. But the movie's a great standalone movie, you know, great standalone movie. And then the book is like, wow, there's all this extra stuff too, and more satire and more fun and like more chapters, because the book it's a collection of like I think 4 books or maybe 5. But yeah, super great,
There you go.
super duper cool.
All right, tell you what, I do want to get us slightly back on track here because I have one final point about
Oh,
the
that's right.
empathy
Yeah,
and where the
we do
author
have
draws the line between the good and the bad.
a book. Yes.
So, I would argue that the author would agree that empathy is good for small scale stuff. And once you get to the larger scale stuff, it becomes very questionable.
Yeah.
I think that saying that having an empathetic stance for your countrymen is acceptable, but based on one of the uncomfortable truths that I mentioned earlier, which is that tribes and people are different and even cultures, I think that that is probably where it draws the line. I think that spreading it to like a national level for actually having like a high degree of empathy is probably where it cuts off. Because
Yeah.
once you go beyond that, you start crossing probably too many lines about groups and cultures and whether they have in-group preference for each other or if they have some sort of different ideology that's in direct opposition to yours. I think it just expands it to the level that just has too many unknowns and too many problematic things. And even getting to that national scale, especially in a large country like the United States, I think that the author would say that you're on shaky ground as that one is. But I think that going back to the other principles which I mentioned, which is empathy builds community and the reciprocity also builds the community, which is if you have empathy for your countrymen and your countrymen have empathy for you, it keeps it keeps the feedback loop closed, and theoretically you're continuing to improve the thing that you have the capability to improve, which is your own nation. Because realistically, unless you're doing warfare or political or international diplomacy on a large scale, you can't affect other countries, but you can affect your own. So I think that
Yeah.
that really is where the author would probably draw the line. And even to the degree that I put it, I think he would say, be careful on that one.
Yeah, and I think that, having empathy, like having a small amount of empathy for other countries isn't terrible, but like realistically, there's probably a ton of energy expenditure for things that have nothing to do with one's own country. When it's like you look at how much money and effort and whatever the United States is putting out to the rest of the world, and it's like we could be doing that here, we could be fixing the water in Flint, Michigan. We could be fixing the potholes. We could be, doing better infrastructure, building America up to be way cooler and better and more awesome. We could be changing the laws to be, much more lax and allow for more industry and allow for more um like money making and things rather than, you know, basically beating down all the monopolies competition to the point where they don't exist anymore, and then the monopolies move out of country and now nobody's left with fucking work here in America. It's like we could be using the resources that are being expended on empathy into, you know different, better, cooler things, like picking out the beam from our own eye before we try and take the splinter out of our neighbor's eye or some shit like that.
That
Um,
is a very, very good quote for this situation, I think. And I think you also said something that really hit the nail on the head, which is that being empathy is all using empathy is expenditure of resources for whatever it is.
yeah,
And
the cost.
what
There's a real cost.
correct. And the argument that I gave and the authors that I thought the author would agree with there about where's the limitation, that's the limitation for empathy. I'm not saying that you can't be sympathetic, which is actually feeling for other people instead of actually the expenditure of resources and doing something about it. Those are
Yeah,
separate things because you can absolutely be friendly and like supportive in
courteous.
other ways, or even
Yep.
just basic courtesy. Yes,
Yeah,
you can
like
absolutely do
Arcus.
that beyond the level I was talking about. It's
Yeah, go
why
back to
we
basic
have
manners. Treat people with courtesy.
exactly. It's why, especially when you have other countries and cultures that are like pretty similar and compatible with your own, they're not your countrymen, but you still feel a bit of kinship towards each other. And there's even that fun, like kind of like sibling rivalry that develops, whether it's just like Americans, like and Englishmen that are kind of like, ribbing each other about stuff all the time.
Hmm.
It is a healthy respect and understanding, but at the same time, neither group is trying to like really take care of the other one. They're trying to take care of their own and they can still enjoy the relationship that they have with each other. It's
Yeah,
just where empathy draws the line, I think, is really the expenditure of resources. It's where sympathy drives you to action to go do a thing.
yeah. That makes me like the thing that I'm thinking of. Oh, and by the way, shout out to Mr. Kenturian. Damn right, Will. America first. Wearing my blue America first hat on the golf course right now. Good to see, Centurion.
There you go.
Excellent.
I think
It
it's
reminds me a lot, Zenith. A lot of the stuff that like we're talking about reminds me of like apartheid in Africa and how it wasn't like it wasn't like the white Africans were enslaving the black Africans. It was basically like the white Afrikaners, the Boers, were like, hey, we have our culture and we're building our thing over here. We're building like this little zone where we're gonna be in, and like black natives, you guys can come in here and you can work with us and you can do stuff and you can participate if you want and we won't fuck with you and you guys can do your own little thing over there. And basically like that's like where Rhodesia and South Africa and a lot of the like the breadbasket countries in Africa like became the powerhouses they were. And then they started incorporating like the civil rights for the native blacks and things. And eventually there came to be too many like too many gimmies, and then a lot of the oh man, the I forgot what the word is, but there's a word for like the tribal like nomadic native black Africans that would roam around, and they basically just eventually started like coming in and being homeless in the white areas and just like living off of the scraps of the empathy from like the white culture and civilization. And then eventually like a lot of the Boers moved out, and like Rhodesia collapsed as a country because of all the fighting and all the like the militarization of basically that exact same thing. um and then like you got like Robert Mugabe and Nelson Mandela like doing stuff in that same line, like further what's the word of eviscerating, no, um where they're making exacerbating the problem down there and just like doing all sorts of crazy shit. But like it's basically like a lot of the problems came from like stem from the empathy, stem from like the feelings like oh these poor people, we can like take better care of them, and like you invite them into your home and then they start doing fuck shit and ruining everything, and then gimme, and then start brandishing the knives and doing the craziness. And then like it's like what Canada is doing with the Indian refugees, and what like you take a look at Europe and all the Middle Eastern like craziness that's going on up in London or in Germany or in France or in Sweden. Like the amount of child abuse and like just random like gang rape assaults that are happening from like the Arabic immigrants, all of it getting swept under the rug and like the people getting jailed and shit. So it's like all of this stuff that Gad talks about inside the book is like all of this nationwide empathy of like, oh, we got to feel bad for these poor people that are immigrating to our country, and then they go around like chopping people's heads off because they're not Islamic, or they're like raping like little girls and shit. And like people that speak out against them are thrown in jail for making Twitter thought crimes, while the rapists are let go after like 20 days of community service. And it's just like it's fucking nuts, man. It's fucking absolutely crazy that this shit's going on, and those countries are going to realize, and hopefully America doesn't get to this point. I would hate to see for that. Um, maybe we are, maybe we're not, but like I don't know, man. Anyways, I'm ranting. Bring
No,
us
no,
back, bro. Reel us in.
you're on topic. Alrighty,
Yeah.
so I think we beat up pretty good what the
Mhm.
author is arguing about what is the good form of empathy.
Mhm.
I guess the next real thing I wanted to discuss with you is what is the train of logic that extends it too far? How how do you get to the place where the empathy becomes detrimental to either yourself, your community, or your country? Like how do you get from point A to point B?
Mm. I suppose just overextending. You find out when you overextend, you start losing resources, both from the overextension and from the people that you're overextending with, coming to the realization that there's this goodie basket, this toothless and clawless goodie basket that you can just take things from. You know, perhaps that's the point of overextension. I don't know. Is that what you're asking, or am
I can
I?
see that. I think I'm probably thinking a little more like basic building blocks kind of stuff.
Okay.
So we covered, and in particular me, I made the argument for stuff like family, tribe, community as like basis for good empathy.
Hmm.
I think Gad Saad, the author, he identifies two kind of things that really correlate with each other about how you get the logical step from good empathy to starting to go too far. Step one is just modern society is able to expand this to a degree that was unfathomable previously, which is through the internet, even all the communication stuff before that, publications that were international, and now the ability to have social media, it opens you up to the world and be able to see all these things going on at record speed. And in conjunction with that, it's also that compassion became attached to kind of like moral prestige or status, if you will, which is that if you're fighting for, if you're trying to achieve status, you have to be a good person, and the good person standard is kind of determined by the people that you're trying to get it from. But if you're trying to get it from just like the aggregate of social media, then the standards it's kind of uncontrollable, and it's again kind of goes back to whoever you look up to, which are probably like large accounts, influential people, that kind of stuff. And I think that it's this combination that really is the tipping point beyond it, because you're starting to care about things that are beyond your scope, and you're trying to appeal to people that are outside of your immediate vicinity. I'm not saying your lives couldn't be impacted by it. I mean, there's like famous stories about like people getting discovered on social media stuff and like becoming superstars and whatnot. I happen to think that those are definitely corner cases and not
Yeah,
the average result. So
certainly
even then, I think
exceptions.
it's a bad argument, because you're arguing the exception to the rule.
You're arguing the best marketed anomaly that's just
Correct.
spicy
Exactly.
because of the marketing or the story or whatever. It's not the common case.
Yeah. So once I think it just kind of creates this arms race that is unwinnable. There's no end to it. It's just an ongoing arms race about who is the most compassionate in order to achieve the most status. And this is where you get into really the detachment from the outcomes, which is it's less about doing the things and more about like showing that you care about the things. And that's
It's about signaling.
correct.
What?
The signaling. I think
I
this is
gotta
kind of
get
really
bonus points from other people. Man, there's so many better ways to get bonus points from other people than just being like, look at how cool I am and how caring I can be, you know?
yeah. I think that there's a few more steps that the author lays out about the logical train here, about
Mhm.
how you get all the way to the end step. But in my opinion, this really is kind of like the last detachment from the good model of empathy, and then everything after this is just kind of like consequences. So,
Yeah.
real quick, as a reminder, pretty much empathy evolved as an evolved virtue, something that helped build society and communities and relationships.
Small
Modern
tribal
society,
society. Yeah.
correct. Modern society really expands that reach, and then status competitions, largely enabled by social media, are the thing that attach status to empathy regardless of tangible value. And then after that, we start getting into the real bad stuff, which is intentions start replacing outcomes, which is you're no longer, just because the signal is so loud, you're no longer looking at the results, you're just looking at the loudest signal. On top of that, if you're just looking at the loudest signal, there's not a whole lot of verification of the signal. So truth becomes subordinate to empathy, pretty
Mhm.
much saying that like if certain things hurt people's feelings or stigmatize other groups or undermine compassionate narratives, then it's got to be bad. It's not good. It's not competing in the status game. It's not going to win. And this is where the author argues you get the creation of forbidden knowledge, a lot of the censorship stuff, a lot of the taboo stuff that you're not allowed to say anymore. And then after that, you get down into reinforcement through cyclical nature of this. This is where it really starts to get into institutions. You start to see it being taught by teachers, learned by students. They grow up, join the workforce, start indoctrinating the workplace culture. CEOs are trying to advocate on this kind of stuff. Politicians start campaigning on it, and now because the signal is blasted so wide, it's actually starting to be adopted. And after this, this is where the author argues that reciprocity disappears. He says that evolution cooperation depends on reciprocal exchange. Healthy altruism says, I help you because we're both members of the same cooperative system. Suicidal empathy becomes, I continue giving regardless of whether cooperation is returned.
Yep.
And that one is, I think he puts it here because he has to establish first that in earlier intentions replace outcomes, because previously things are done for purpose and effect as
Yes.
opposed to signaling, and you can only get to the point where you have reciprocity disappear once you replace the measuring stick of what is good empathy. And if you start going for just the signaling as opposed to the impact, then that is where you get the destruction of reciprocity.
Bro, all this stuff is so tied together. Like everything that we talk about, delayed gratification, doing the thing that feels bad now so we get better, like quantifiable result later. You know, like the this suicidal empathy. This like I'm going to measure my now feeling, and I'm not going to measure the like what happens as a result of the actions I take to get this good feeling, sort of thing. It's all so well tied together. You know.
Yeah.
And like
Yeah.
you could look at the chart of like if you just take all this stuff and you put it on a what is it, k equals xy squared, k squared equals xy, or x over y. I don't fucking remember remember the Uniswap formula, but it's like, you know, the people will buy into the thing that they want to, and um the culture will move in that direction. The people will move in that direction. I had another thought that just totally eluded me. I wanted to tie it into like money and invest. Oh yeah, that's right, investing. So it's like you don't throw resources down into a bottomless pit. You throw resources into a thing that turns a profit or that makes a return or that makes the world a better place at like world plus one. You don't take your sugar, your flour, and your butter and you throw it into a hole. You know, you take your sugar, your butter, your flour, you throw it into the oven or throw it into the mixer, and then you make a cake. And now like you've taken the things, the parts that are of value, and you combine them into something that's more valuable, as opposed to taking things that are valuable, throwing them away without any sort of like, with like, oh, it feels good to throw the sugar down this hole, it feels so great to burn my house down, it feels so great to like, you know, scratch the itch that's like, you know, covered with infected poison ivy, whatever, right? Like all of this stuff can be solved by just doing the difficult thing in the if you really want to like boil it down to like, hey, what's the one lesson that we take away from reading this book is like, do the difficult thing that hurts, that has a quantifiable outcome, you know, not just do the nice thing that feels good right now and disregard and just like wear your blinders and only focus on the nice thing of right now, not at all looking into the future, not at all looking into the potential outcomes, not at all looking into what did other people experience when they did this similar thing. So
I think
like,
you really hit it on the head there with that statement,
yeah.
particularly in the second half of it, saying that do the hard thing that has the verifiable result. I
Hmm.
think that the really, if you just had to boil this down to like a sentence about the book, is that as a people, as a country, as whatever you want to say it, is that we continue to do hard things without actually verifying that what we're doing is having the intended impact.
Yeah.
Because I think that's really the core of it here, and where you can really draw the line between like the practical versus suicidal empathy, which is that you continue to do these things believing that you're being empathetic, but if you're not actually verifying the what the outcome of it is, then I think you almost have no rationality or reason about why you're doing it outside of the externalities and the other things that come with it. And that includes all the stuff of like seeking status, trying to appear virtuous, moral signaling, all that kind of stuff. It's
Hmm.
it's the verification of the results that I think really is the detachment point here. And I think you hit that really well.
Yeah. I was also thinking about this like while I was getting the training for this new job that I'm in. One of the things that they were like just hounding on is that like, dude, out on the job sites, everybody can stop operations at any point if something's unsafe. Anybody can be like, "Hey, hold on. Stop what we're doing. This there's something unsafe out here," you know. And then you like, and then you reconvene. You decide if it's an actual problem or not. You get more eyes on the problem. You know, we'd rather a problem turn out to be nothing than allow a dangerous situation to continue. And then if a bad thing does happen, then we write a report about it. And we don't write the report for the purpose of like, who are we going to fire? We write the report so that way we can be like, shit, there's a valuable lesson here. And if we don't write it down, it's fucking disappearing. And the only people that are going to know about it are the people that watched it. And they're only going to know for the duration of time they remember. But if we write it down, now we can start putting it into SOPs. Now we can start training people about it. Now we can avoid these problems in the future and not have to pay the same, you know, painful price twice. So like, measure your to all this to your point about like measuring this stuff, like looking at the outcome, holding up the ruler to see like how different are we from the start that we are from the finish, you know. And like it brings me back to the whole Tiago Forte thing. Like, just take fucking notes about everything, and like you'll get so much better. Like, bro, like ever since I started writing people's names down in my phone, like when I meet him, it's like, oh, this is fucking Cliff, and he's got, you know, a goatee and a pot belly, and this is fucking Jeremy. He's got blonde hair, he likes pigs, and he went catfishing on Thursday. You know, like just writing people's names down in my phone, like I suck at remembering, but because I'm like doing the work and taking the notes, it's like shit's super easy now. Or like, man, just like all of these things that we're doing in like in book club and on this podcast, it all just like it's all tied together, man. Like winning friends and influencing people, learning about the laws of nations and the history of economics and like all of these things. It's all just like it's all just this big fucking spider web. Not to get too like, you know, LSD, it's all connected, man. But it kind of is all connected to itself. All this like greater learning, all of this education stuff that we're doing. It's so like I feel like we're connecting all the strings together, at least inside my own head. And then hopefully by us talking on this podcast, we're like able to influence like 5 or 10% of what we've learned and pass that on to other people that, you know, haven't paid the time price and the reading price that we have. So I don't know, bro. Not to get all meta analysis on this, but like
No, I like it.
It's all tied together, bro. It's all tied together.
Imagine that. You can learn things from other things. What
Yeah.
a concept.
Exactly, right? And like even like fucking Adam Smith has nothing to do with Gad Saad, but they do. The principles, like if you look at the brass tacks of everything, it's all the fucking same. It's don't waste your investment shit. Don't throw away value. You know? Take notes. Keep track of things.
Very true.
Mhm.
I think we did a good job of identifying kind of like the logical train of how you get from good empathy to bad empathy and then the ultimate repercussions. But I think one of the big questions that still comes to mind for me is why do people make that split? What causes people to actually detach from measuring the results, detach from practicality, and go towards the other thing? I know it's probably easy to point to social media, but I think that social media only worked as effectively as it did at this because people were primed for it, which indicates that there was something else besides just the new technology. So, what do you think people aren't like actually verifying that the empathy has the ability to do the thing? You could just call it laziness. You could call it just people overestimating their abilities. Like, what do you think?
What can you restate the question?
How
Like what?
does why would a person s- start doing the empathetic signaling and actual activities that go beyond the practical empathy to the suicidal empathy?
Why would a person do the activities that go from practical empathy to suicidal empathy?
Yeah, because it's like, why do you like what makes a person not care about the results and just care more about the other stuff?
It might just be they never measured the results in the beginning. Could be I wouldn't attribute it to malice. I would attribute it to ignorance and maybe stupidity, but probably not stupidity. Probably ignorance. And then also uh like just not paying attention. Not paying attention, and then possibly maybe there's a much like the heroin addict has to do larger and larger quantities of heroin to get the same high. Perhaps you have to scale up in the empathy to get the same sort of feeling, to get the same sort of validation from other people, because that's essentially what it all boils down to. Is the empathy boils down to like I want validation from my peers that I'm doing right thing. You know, like that's what like the empathy like as a signaling, right? It wouldn't be as relevant if there was nobody around to see it. You know, if you're just doing it for the sake of doing it, then you would only do it with individuals. But like doing it for entire societies, if you're all alone inside of a glass box and nobody can see you, then you're going to do the things that will, like, barring like, oh, Jesus is watching or whatever, and Jesus will judge me and other stuff. Like, it's all chasing validation. So perhaps the person needs a larger and larger hit of validation in order to feel good. Similar to the phenomena you see on social media, where, like, X, Y, and Z influencer girl on TikTok, like, she used to be happy with 1,000 likes on her video, and now she's like, oh dang, I've been doing this for a year. I'm still only getting 1,000 likes. I'm garbage, or if she was steadily climbing in the likes she was getting, and then it dips a little bit, or whatever, like, there that there needs to constantly be this increase. There needs to constantly be this, like, this Ponzi. There needs to be inflation to the likes. It needs to be growing. So perhaps that plays a part in it. Why somebody would transition from the healthy version of empathy to the unhealthy version of empathy. That might factor in there a little bit. But I would say it's probably just ignorance, and it's probably just people with too much time on their hands and not enough real problems to solve in their own lives. Uh,
I think you got a lot of good points there, and I kind of
yeah.
want to unpack those. I think
I don't think you see suicidal empathy in third world countries where they have so many real problems. You
correct.
only see it with people who have too much time on their hands.
I think that's another part of it as well.
Hmm.
So attacking it from ignorance and apathy and laziness, I think that's a fair avenue of going. I think there's also a justification you can make about rational decision making as well. So if you're going off of just the apathy one, it's like you talked about. You don't have to care about it, so why care? Meaning that the incentive to care was removed. In this case, empathy is expending resources on something, and if you're not verifying the outcome, it means that you either don't care about the resources or you have an abundance of it.
Hmm.
That kind of goes down the line of like the Matrix ideology, which is like human civilization peaked in the 90s or something like that. But I think that even goes a little bit further down as well. Attacking it from the rational, like rational decision making standpoint, you do the empathy thing because you're rewarded more for doing the empathy than doing the thing itself. If that's the case, then it means that there is a reinforcement mechanism inside of the doing things side of the house. If that's the case, it means you're rewarded in some way.
Yeah.
The reward in this case, I think it could be monetary. I don't know if it is exactly, but I think that being rewarded by probably just like happy feel goods and stuff like that,
Yeah.
whether it's just pure appeal to ego or it's
Mental
validation
monetary.
from other folks.
Yeah.
But then again, I think that argument also comes back to the building block or kind of like the cornerstone of like social media or just mass media at large. And if you go there, then I think you also go back to we have new technology that was created by society that's doing very well that got us to this point. And that
Hmm.
kind of merges paths with the one that we had previously, which was that society was doing so well that the survival pressure or just the physical, I guess it's all just survival pressure, physical demand for just sustenance, shelter, that kind of stuff was solved to a degree. But I think if that's the case, we kind of arrive at the singularity of society was doing too well, got away from survival pressures. But how does the author connect it to postmodernism? Oh gosh. Um
I never liked that word, postmodernism, but ignore me. I'm just peanut gallery here.
yeah, you're good. I think that hmm, I think that maybe peak civilization was a time where we saw financially the world, especially inside of the United States, because that's the kind of the focus that we have right now, is
Hmm.
that we were doing very well financially, but maybe there were other areas that were also not doing well. I think you can align that with a lot of the statistics about um, religious attendance, community building, and overall just like societal woes were community building and ties were going down, woes were going up. I think that that is slightly tied into kind of the rise of what we saw from the time period before that, which is like 50s and 60s, which is outgrowth of World War II. I hate that I'm saying that World War II was the starting point of history in this case, but it kind of is, because that's where we really get to kind of the modern society side of things.
We have been joined
That we have.
by
Please save
Mr.
me.
Moonpilled Rational Optics. Moonpilled, I'm going to bring you up on stage, broski. Welcome to the show. You were the one that suggested this book. I'm glad that we could have you on, Mr. OG Original Gangster Degen. What's going on, Moon? What's new and exciting with you, broski? Welcome.
Oh, not too much, guys. I know it's been a long time since I've been on here, and I'm trying to get back and make some more time to have more screen time with you guys.
Fuck yeah, dude.
Yeah, nothing new outside of what I talk to you guys about, usually in the background and in the chats on Telegram and such.
Excellent. Well, thank you for recommending this book, broski. What got you into the Gad Saad mood of late?
Whenever I mean, my Audible is like all over the place whenever it comes to recommendations and everything else. And there was another book set that I was recommended, is Defending the Undefendable, by Robert Block. I'm butchering the author right now. Yeah. And then Gad Saad was just one of those, hey, if you like this, then you might like this. And I remember that, threw it on for a while, and it's like, okay, these guys are going to like this one too.
Okay. Well, yeah. Welcome, broski.
Yeah, this book, it was a good read for sure, but it was a bit of a departure from the usual stuff we cover. But I think that it's definitely stuff that most people have probably been thinking about, especially if you follow just like what's going on in kind of like the cultural zeitgeist in the United States, especially because through the latest Trump administration, one of the things he was elected on was immigration reform and then also deportations. And that is one of the identifiable things that this book really goes in on, is saying that, like, yeah, the suicidal empathy led to the importation of a lot of folks, and it has destroyed both your economy and your culture. And now you're dealing with all that stuff. Yeah.
Hell yeah.
But that's actually one of the main reasons sorry.
I was gonna ask. I was just gonna try and broach another convo topic, but if you got a thought, broski, please, by all means.
To piggyback off what you said about it being a little bit different from what Book Hub normally covers, is I think it's still very applicable, because even though it's a more socially geared book, it still applies to how our economy is running right now and in real time. Like all the social programs that are eating up half of the GDP, the price of gasoline, the price of groceries, and everything else, all of that still applies to that suicidal empathy. So it still had I'd say a good like 40% tinge to economics in there that is like, it still applies.
Oh, it definitely applies, especially the Govern Me Harder Daddy chapter. That was a good one, going in on just like the overall tax burden and just giving up just pretty much any sort of responsibility for what appears to be a guarantee of safety, heavily using air quotes around guarantee there. But yeah, I mean, it's stuff that in the crypto world, we have fully just dealt, especially the DeFi world, just fully dived in headfirst into the world of just like self-responsibility when it comes to banking, which is one of the most regulated things that we have in the United States now. So I think that even just like the environment that we operate in is very different from the environment that the author is describing is kind of like overtaking the majority of the culture. So I don't know, I guess we're the rebels at this point because we want to control our own stuff and be in charge of our own destiny.
How dare we?
Yep. we are the sovereignty about which the citizenry is comprised. Hey, look at that.
That's true.
Very cool.
By the way, we do have a really good comment here from Arceus. I wanted to use as a little bit of a springboard here.
Yeah.
She said, the empathy issue is clouded by businesses. They'll do things that look like empathy when they're just saying whatever they think will make them more money. I don't know about you guys, but do you remember a time period when you really started to see the social signaling coming from like businesses and corporations?
Oh yeah.
Like when do you imagine like that really like picked up and took off? Like what time frame?
Oh shit. Shortly before COVID, like come June time, turns out every company is all of a sudden really gay. You know? like
Okay.
like what? Dicks and butts? What the fuck's going on here? What does this have to do with Mitsubishi? Or maybe not Mitsubishi. I don't know if they would do it, but like
Sorry, Mitsubishi.
well, yeah, sorry Mitsubishi. I have no idea if you put on a fucking pride flag or whatever during Pride month, but it's like at least I can sleep soundly knowing that the other 11 months are still dedicated to heterosexuality. So that's good to know. There's always we always got that going for you. This is something that any of you guys can take comfort in. Whenever there's a month dedicated to something that you don't like, just know that the other 11 are for you. So it's like you still got the majority, baby. You know, Women's History Month. Oh, thank God, I as a man still have the other 11. You know, Black History Month. Oh, as a white person, I still got the other 11. Fucking for those of you guys that are not veterans, you still get 363 days that are just for you that have nothing to do with veterans or memorials. So like, you guys are in profit. You know, so just think it whenever you're bummed out about any sort of holiday, uh, just remember that the rest of them are meant for you. And
There you go.
but like as far as like the companies start to do the virtue signaling things, I think like the 20 teens, somewhere in there, maybe, you know, early 2020s, something like that. Am I way off in that? I wasn't really. I kind of lived under a rock from 2011 to 2019 when I was in the Marine Corps, and I was just literally focused on Skyrim, World of Tanks, and when's the next, Liberty Liberty call. I don't know. Am I off here? Because it was probably during cell phone and social media age, I would imagine.
I don't think there's an objective answer for this one. I'm just asking you guys when do you like remember it starting to happen? Moonpilled. When do you think that it really took off?
Really took off where you saw the
Go for
snowball
both.
building momentum down the hill.
Do both.
Snowball building momentum down the hill was anything at least 2012, at least. You can
Okay.
see tinges of it prior to, even leading up into the 2003, 2007, up in there, like, but it wasn't anywhere near bad. It was just like more of like, you don't worry about it. 2012 and later, it seemed like it was more prevalent. And I agree with Will. It's like when you see around 2016, 2015, somewhere in there,
Yeah.
was definitely it rolling a lot harder as far as like the brands, the logos, and everything else. Because really, depending on like you said, Will, like you were quote unquote living under a rock, doing other things. If you weren't in a certain space or paying attention to a certain area, you would never saw it, never thought about it, never even heard of it. Especially back
Yeah,
before social media really, took off.
this is true.
I dig it.
There's also something to keep in mind, and this is a statistic that has ran economics and marketing and advertising and everything for 20, 30, 40, 50 years, is that women make up about 80%, 70 to 80% of all the money that passes hands in the West. Like they account for about 70% of consumer spending comes from like female hands, whether it's like credit cards or whether they're using husband's money or their own money or fucking blowing through savings. Who the fuck knows? About 70% of all consumer spending is done by women. And so um when women respond more to emotive and empathetic and virtue signaling kind of messages and things, companies are going to tailor their advertisements to that stuff. Like look at just about any commercial that's not like a commercial for a truck, and it'll be like a slightly effeminate commercial where they're speaking in upwards inflection all the time, and like the mom of the house is like the one that's like, oh, look at dumb dad or dumb kids or dumb dog over there using off-brand paper towels. Well, I use brawny paper towels. I'm the smart one. I'm the woman in the house. And so like this gets the like women that are watching the commercials or whatever to be more interested in buying these things. And it's not like, I'm not just making this assertion out of nowhere. This is like a statistical,
It's
like
well documented.
everything points to this conclusion, and it's not like people throwing out theories. It's like people are like, oh, we've made all these changes, and this is where we've driven to. It's like everything taken to its extreme eventually ends up at the extreme. If you want to optimize for like click through and retention rate, everything eventually turns into porn. If you want to hold somebody on your website when they click an ad, you start off showing them a shiny car, and it's like, wow, they're looking at the shiny car, and then it's like, oh, we're gonna put some curves on the car, and it's like, oh, people like ladies. We're gonna put ladies on it. It's, oh, now the ladies are wearing bikinis. Oh, now the ladies are naked. Oh, now we've got naked ladies on the screen. Now they're kissing each other, and it's like, oh, everything eventually um like taken to its extreme ends up wherever it's going to go. And in the marketing world, and in the advertising world, and in the world of like creating ad copy and everything, it's like it is well documented that like making emotive and gynocentric like commercials sells more than making masculine commercials and things like that. So it's just a that this probably contributes to the the empathetic signaling that companies will do, is because it appeals to the empathetic nature, and it probably sells better. And perhaps they're just out there doing the trial and error thing. Like there was the Bud Light case where they did the trial and error of putting specific like transgender people on cans, and it was met with a crazy backlash, and it didn't work out so well. So like there's lots of cases where things go in a different direction than they think. And like the Gillette commercial where they made fun of dudes with beards, and they're like, oh yeah, if you got a beard, you don't shave, you're a fucking bad angry man, and if you shave, then you're a good guy. And hashtag stop just boys will be boys, or whatever. So that's my little rant and my little thoughts on this topic. Am I fucking going crazy here? Moonpilled
I don't
Rational
think
Optimist.
you.
Zenith looks like he's got something to say.
Well, I got to answer my own question at some point, and you
Ooh.
had a good little tee off there for you mentioned like specific cases or instances, and
Mhm.
I was trying to think back. I know all three of us are slightly restricted based on just like how old we are, and we weren't really like alive and super like cognizant through like the 80s and 90s and stuff.
Yeah.
But I think like the oldest one I can think of was there's that like infamous clip of Kanye West during 2005 for Hurricane Katrina where he says George Bush doesn't care about black people.
Yeah.
And I was like, that might be the oldest kind of like moral signaling thing that I can really think of. But the big one for me, especially when it comes to the corporations, I remember Tom's shoes. They went really hard on this campaign that for like every pair of shoes they bought, they were donating a pair to like some country in Africa or something. And by the way, they actually ended up destroying an entire, like multiple entire African economies. They just put cobblers out of business because no one was buying shoes because they were just getting them for free. Little side note.
Oh
But that
man, they
one,
gentrified the cobbler African economy.
pretty much, yeah. But that one was 2006, and if I'm remembering back correctly, like kind of like indie, all slightly hippie culture of more of like being like the like empathetic rebels. That was pretty big during like early 2000s. I think the Tom shoes, they're not like obviously they're not like Reebok or Nike or anything, but they were a decently large size company that went hard on this and really started the marketing. I think that might be like one of the first ones to do it.
Mhm.
But then I think that the rest of
What
the
a Google
stuff is really, I think Moonpill actually hit it on the head, which is like probably like 2012, somewhere between 2012 and 2016, things really took off. There was the Gillette, the best a man can get commercial was 2019. The Kylie Jenner Pepsi commercial where she like gives a Pepsi to like riot cops, that was 2017. And then I can't really remember or find any ones that were like before that. So I think that really is the time frame for it. As far as the time frame goes, as far as the underlying question, I think there's another interesting thing, which is like, why did the businesses do this? And I think the book and stuff we've been talking about kind of gives two possible answers. One is that we already detached from like verifiable empathetic things before, or two is that there was an actual benefit to doing so, which encouraged them to do it more. So I don't really know about the answer for that part of the question.
I think I got something if you
Go for it.
are done. Okay. I was making sure I was taking notes on this. Um, when you were talking about the commercials and the commercialization, if, like Will said, if you look at a truck and everything else, it'll be straightforward. But if you look at an SUV or a car, they'll have maybe more of a gimmick to it or certain upward inflection, etc. And it kind of is like the Tom's shoes. Tom's shoes wasn't necessarily a marketing; it was a story. You had a story behind Tom's shoes. You had an adventure. You had like this thing you could relate to, and that if you're trying to appeal to a more of a mass audience, like the 80% of consumers, they love a story. Whereas if I'm gonna go buy a truck, I'm looking at a Chevy, Ford, Toyota, or say Nissan. Well, Chevys had terrible transmissions. Toyotas have pretty good reliability with of warranty work and everything else, and Nissans having axle problems and everything. I'm looking at that. I'm not looking at a commercial and like, oh, I see a Toyota truck, jumping over a cliff and like I need that one. It's like
Yeah.
I'm looking at more pride, like, but that's the consumer that doesn't necessarily need a story behind it.
That makes sense. Okay.
I know I see your wheels turning right now.
I'm just trying to comprehend.
Well, because you said Tom shoes.
Yeah.
I understand it's a marketing thing. But like for every shoe you buy, we will give another one, and they would show pictures on the commercials and everything else,
Yep.
and like help that. Like it was a story. It wasn't just a company selling you a product directly. It was a company selling you a product, and because if you buy this product, it's going to help this other person. And because of you're doing that, you can now feel better helping another person by buying a pair of
Yep.
shoes.
Yep. They're
It was a
selling
story.
you the feeling. Yeah. Yeah, man. Dude, I'm reading up on this. They fucked up. This is hilarious. Mass shipment of free shoes destroyed the local developing communities, and just like you were saying, Zenith, just like fuck the local cobbler economy. Everyone was making fun of them, being like the band-aid fallacy, like giving away consumer goods treats the symptom of poverty rather than the root cause. And it's just like, man, it's just hilarious.
I
As
have
far
10 years
as
in sales. Like I know how to weave a story if I need to.
Yeah.
there you go, some good salesmanship. I like it. As far as the Tom shoes, I don't know if this should be the core case study for this one, but I did just look up some quick numbers. They launched around 2006. They were selling like 10,000 pairs in their first 8 months, purely on the emotional appeal.
Yep.
After they had like a Los Angeles Times feature, and they spiked sales by like 2,200 pairs of shoes in one day, completely outstripping their inventory. After that, their sales jumped pretty much from 50,000 pairs in 2007 to 140,000 pairs in 2009. A lot of it was it claims to be fueled by grassroots awareness and corporate partnerships like AT&T. So for this case study, it appears that they tried, I think maybe it was either a tactic or like they just genuinely believe they were helping. So it was this could be the case study for the rest of the corporations to kind of like really go on the model, which is like dudes launched a shoe company. It was kind of small scale. They had the campaign. It caught a lot of traction. It honestly was just moral signaling and destroyed the cobblers in Africa, but it worked. So the incentive for companies to do this clearly is there. And then maybe that was the thing that really got other companies to start doing the moral signaling as well.
Yeah.
Probably took some time for it to catch on, but I don't know. I think it's it is a plausible argument for maybe an early origination point of the moral signaling stuff for corporations.
It took them till 2019 to stop. Man, they went from like basically 2008 to 2019 before they finally ended the buy one give one strategy entirely. They tried like, making the shoes get built in Africa to like increase the local jobs and whatnot, and it's just like it didn't work. It did not work.
Yeah.
They gentrified it. They flooded it with money without like addressing the problem of like people need an ability to create value, to take the cake, or to take the flour, the sugar, and the eggs, and to put it together and to make a cake. If you just give them cakes, then now they're just people with a bunch of cakes, and you know,
Tell you what,
fucking silly.
I do have another part of the book that we haven't covered yet that I do want to get your guys' takes on. And that's the last chapter, which is looking at actual possible corrections to the underlying problem. Because I think we've beaten that up pretty good. But pretty much from Gad Saad, he gives, I think it's 10 different things that are corrections to the issue. Number 1, replace emotional reasoning with reality-based reasoning. Number 2, separate empathy from policy decision making. Number 3 is reestablish reciprocity. Number 4 is reward responsibility rather than victimhood. 5 is demand free inquiry, the ability to actually encourage debate, tolerate disagreement, and protect controversial research. 6 is reintroduce evolutionary psychology into social science. 7, evaluate policies based on their incentives and outcomes. 8, recover intellectual courage. Trying to encourage people to not hold ideas back due to like career risk, being ostracized socially, fears cancellation, that kind of stuff. 9, distinguish compassion from self-sacrifice. And then 10 is return to the golden mean, which is find a healthy balance. Were there any of those that I read off that you guys think would be particularly effective at solving the problem, or maybe one that's like better than others?
Of this list of 10 things that were quite long and verbose, do you guys remember? I don't remember a single fucking one that you just listed off. I also don't have the list in front of me. The thing that I remember is just like measuring the results rather than the intentions. Was that one of them?
Yes, that was one of the ones I was going to go with as well. Actually measure results instead of intentions.
Yeah.
Because I think that, I mean, a
what
lot
are
of
your
the gripe that we have is like,
quantifiers?
we're just like at the governmental level, we're just throwing money down a pit, not seeing if it actually does anything.
Yeah. As opposed to throwing spaghetti at the wall and look at what sticks. We're just throwing the spaghetti down the hole and like, so eventually we'll fill this hole with spaghetti. I don't know. What do you think, Moon?
I think when you have a money printer that's unlimited, you can make anything happen you want. And then when you're trying to appeal to people's, not necessarily sense and sensibilities, it's just, I'm not sure even how to answer that question. It's just, yeah, if you're just trying to buy your voter base, basically.
Yeah.
And you're not really worried about the cost, because once it came off the gold standard, it was kind of harder to like just indulge people.
Yeah. And I mean, you still have to be like, even with the infinite money printer, you can't just print all the money at once. You have to be real like deliberate and slow about it, and very like, nuanced, which is why we have the Fed that like does all their little 25 points here, negative 25 there, this, that, or the other thing. Like they can't just do it all. They could do it all at once one time. But then the one trick pony is the cat's out of the bag, and now everybody knows. It's like we can do these little nickels and dimes for a very long time, stretch it out. But you're totally right, bro. With the money printer, they can do whatever the fuck they want. Like, yikes.
As far as the list of solutions that the author gives, I think I think the ones that you guys picked out is actually probably the easiest to do, because a lot of the other ones deal with like trying to change human nature a little bit, which is difficult to do without some real heavy-handedness. But the one that where did it go? Judge policies by outcomes, and then decision making based not on empathy but based on actual like rational thought. I think that the second one might be a little harder to do because you're trying to tell people like, hey, get out of your feelings and think about it. And that's kind of an attack on the person to be like, I'm not emotional, you're emotional. But the other one of like, if you could actually set some sort of standard, especially if you're spending money at the large scale or creating like large scale policy at the high level, actually creating some sort of like feedback loop or restriction, which is like, this project will only continue if it achieves X, Y, and Z results measured at this frequency. Otherwise, it's just canceled. That stuff makes sense. A lot of the other stuff I think is very much personal, because with stuff like cultivating intellectual courage, demanding free inquiry, prioritizing truth over feelings, that's stuff that I think you have to do. That's a cultural shift, and it's a lot harder to do, and it's going to take a lot more effort and collective effort at that than the other ones that are like
theoretical results than actionable results.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. Gosh. The solutions make sense, but I just don't know realistically the path to get there outside of just like
Oh,
pain
I
and
got
suffering, the loss of your country and culture. Go
so
for it, Will.
I see two paths. One is unrealistic and the other is catastrophic. So I guess they're both unrealistic, right? So my unrealistic solution is to remove power from people that abuse the assertion of power. So
Hmm.
what does that mean? It means make voting hard again or something, or just repeal the 19th. That's the simple solution. Repeal the 19th. Bam, there we go. Done diddy do.
Repeal the
Women
14th,
can't
good
vote
sir.
anymore. Repeal the 14th, repeal the 19th, repeal the 15th, fix the 13th to where it's nobody can be slaves, not just prisoners. And also remove the incorporation doctrine and make everyone state citizens again, and no longer U.S. citizens that fall under the jurisdiction of like the corporate government. Anyways, that's a whole fucking pie in the sky thing. And the other one, the more catastrophic and the more realistic answer to this is like you can't stop it. It will get worse until it gets better. You know, hard times make good men make good times make weak men make hard times. We're somewhere inside of the hard times or into the weak men like point right now. And so it either collapses and from the ashes the phoenix rises, or enough people get fed up that they, storm places with guns and like change things with violence. Like it doesn't strike me as a sort of thing that you can just kind of like vote yourself out of, or that you can just kind of like slowly change the culture out of. I think that like this is a very far dug pit that would require so many people to give up so many mental drugs that it's just too big of an ask. It's like, nah, bro, I'm going to go back to scrolling memes on my phone instead of doing this difficult thing that I will never that I will never bear the fruit. It's like I'm like too many people are uninterested in planting a tree when they'll never see the apples that come from it, you know. And so like I don't think that you're going to get societal change in such a way that would be necessary to stop like people from making decisions that have these crazy negative influences, because everybody has franchise, because everybody has voting power. It cheapens the value of the wise and intellectual few that would make good decisions, and instead it puts the decision making power in a whole bunch of dingleberries that will vote for the first shiny thing or bread and circuses that cross their path. So like asking people to not vote for bread and circuses in favor of difficult thing, like while it sounds cool, it's it's not going to happen when you have mostly the middle of the bell curve casting the franchise vote and forcing their will on other people. So like what can you do? You can run away. You can start your own little conclave. You can do your own little thing off in the bushes. You can get a whole bunch of guns and you can be a prickly fortress, or you can be a person that goes where you're treated best, or you can be a person that like finds a way to force your will on everyone else, right? But like to be able to convince everyone, that's the biggest ask. Yeah, and like like what Mr. Just Live is saying, most people are completely asleep still and don't care to wake up. So that's my own personal cynical take on what can be done to fix this sort of thing. Moonpill, do you have like a positive idea that can counterbalance my
You can also double down on what Will said either.
or you can double down. What are your thoughts, Broski?
That's a lot to take in, and yeah, the solution is going to be a lot harder and more complicated because Will had some really great points, and I don't know where I heard it. I think I heard it this week or this past week. It was something to the effect of, you can have a society you want by having millions die, impoverished, and try and make like the social goal work, or you can just be a little mean to people by telling them no every so often, and no, you can't just have what you want.
Yeah.
And we just need to tell people, no, you can't just have what you want. It
Good
doesn't
luck.
work out in sunshine and rainbows. And the worst part is, honestly, if it would come down to a practical solution of, I don't know how you would do it. The amount of, I hate this word, misinformation that's out there when it comes to the economics, social structure, and everything else that's really prevalent in the United States, among other places. There was one guy I saw in a YouTube short or something like that was comparing minimum wage from the 1970s to today. And it's like, you can't do that. It just doesn't work.
The
Like,
math doesn't
not only
match.
is inflation eating up everything, no one is paid minimum wage anymore. No one. It's just, you cannot do it. So there's that argument was just thrown out entirely, but it was a good rage bait the way he structured it. And like, oh, well, if you're all these people are paid minimum wage, we'll tax these guys instead. It's like, you got to get rid of that mentality. That is like how Just Live said. It's like most people are asleep. They'll scroll through, they'll see those things, and they will not actually pick up an economics book. You go across anybody in the streets anymore and ask them, hey, can you give me an idea, horseshoe idea of what Austrian economics are? No one can tell you. Nothing. Couldn't tell you. I'm not looking for thesis. I'm not looking for whatever. It's like an idea. What define free market economy? Just help me out. It's like, it doesn't work.
That's a big ask, Moon. That's a big ask to ask people to think about one thing that's slightly complicated. Good luck.
Yeah. In summary, though, it sounds like you're saying it's possible to course correct at this point. But in order to do so, we would have to actually start having the spine to tell people, no, you can't have everything you want immediately to some degree.
Basically.
Okay. Okay.
I mean,
I see that.
No one has people aren't as uncomfortable as they need to be to actually make some positive changes. It's like everyone has that floor. I don't know yours is different from mine. To where you hit it, like, I can't do this, or I'm just gonna wither in the corner and die. It's one of the two. Like, you have to make the decisions. Like,
It makes sense. I think I agree with you. I don't think we've gotten past the tipping point. I think it's possible to recover. The country is not imploded. Western civilization is not dead. It's definitely on the road to dying, but it's not dead. But for me, I think the big roadblock in the way is that it's going to require the willpower of either the people or at least some sort of small group of folks that have the ability to make the change. Traditionally, I think people would call these an elite class, if you will, not by like birth or blood, but more by influence and stuff. Yeah, the 3%, pretty much. Yeah. It kind of goes back to the idea that like the people will never rise up. It's usually always led by some sort of like group of highly effective, highly capable, or highly intertwined people. And at this point, I just don't see kind of like the political or like I don't know if emotional is the correct word, but emotional willpower to actually do the things that need to be done. I think that you see pockets of it, but there's not that like critical mass, or there's not that critical mass in a critical place to be able to make the change happen. So I think that it's still possible to recover, but until you get over that hurdle, I don't know if we're going to see it.
Yeah. That's a big hurdle, man.
Yeah, but it kind of goes back to the analogy people make of like founding fathers went to war over basically a 3% tax increase, and look at you now.
Yeah. Yeah.
People can still afford McDonald's. It's not, they're not struggling enough yet.
Yeah.
Yeah,
we
you
got
just put it on
people
the
aren't
farm.
bad enough at flock cameras. They're not
too much. Oh man, that seems to be a pretty.
I know,
like,
Just Live. Shout out to
crazy
him. I mean, he had a good comment on there.
Oh yeah. The flock and drones in their face, and they still keep their heads down attached to their dopamine machines. Yes, absolutely. I might be installing some of these in the near future, installing some flock cameras. Maybe not flock, but like more DOT, but same sort of idea. traffic cameras that look at mostly cars and things, but they don't pick out license plates. They study traffic patterns. So I might be involved in that. But hey, guys, I'll tell you what. If I start installing flock cameras, then I'm going to get some juicy information on how they're put up and what kind of craziness. But I think that the stuff that I'm doing is more um, Department of Travel or Department of Transportation more so than like, ooh, let me get your juicy plates. So all the stuff that we work with up here is municipalities. But like there was one of my previous employers was asking me like, hey, do you want to come down to Tennessee and help install cameras all over the highways? And I was like, oh, I want to make some money, and I would love to have some inside information on how the scoop goes. So I'd be happy. I'd be quite happy to traitorously pass that on to you guys and maybe get fired or something. But
I'll just call me up later and tell me how you sabotaged them. That's all I need to know. Just not on
Hey.
not on air.
Yep. I might do it on the fucking air. Who knows? So we'll see. We'll see. The more people that know, the better. But like realistically, like all you need is a fucking chop saw or a torch cutter, and just fucking the world is your oyster. If you got a grinder and some meth, the world is your fucking oyster. More people need to have the chutzpah and the balls of a proper tweaker who's looking for some copper. If the world was full of the inspiration of a tweaker just looking for some copper, then man, so much shit would get done. So like as much as I don't like the zombie people, I will say they are some go-getters. When they're not holding signs up on the street, they are some go-getters. Another example of suicidal empathy, holding the signs up on the street. So every time you pay a fucking person that's sitting there on the side of the street, you pay them for doing nothing, like congratulations. You are competing with them going out and getting a job, because if they can make $40 an hour by tear jerking people on the side of the road being like, oh, please pray for me, here's my cardboard sign and I'm going to look sad. The more money that you give them doing nothing, the more you're competing against the likelihood of them going and like being productive and making the world better, like sweeping streets or serving burgers or fucking I don't know, like replacing bricks inside of a sewer. Every single dollar that is given to a homeless person doing nothing is a dollar that will compete with their incentive to go and get a proper job. So like something to think about. I don't know. Z, bring us back, bro. Bring us back.
I will bring us back after you gave the use case for panhandling, questionable copper acquisition, and catalytic converter recycling, if you will.
Ooh, I didn't even mention that. Yeah.
I thought you were going to go down that route.
Go get you some cats, ladies and germs.
Yeah. To get us back on track, anyways, we are sort of coming to the end of the show here. So kind of final thoughts on the book and the overall premise here. And I'm really curious to get Moonpill the Rational Optics view on this one, because obviously you were the one that recommended it. Overall, the book, I think, lays out a very, very justifiable case logically and rationally about like how we have arrived at the places that we are. The solutions, they range from practical at immediate implementation to other ones are going to require some like cultural shift. But overall, do you think the author like kind of hit everything, or is there anything else that really factors into this discussion that is not in the book?
If I have to summarize it, yeah, there's always going to be things that a book cannot touch. I mean, he covered a great amount from what, like, I didn't get to get through all the book this week, but I got enough of it to, follow along basically. He covered a lot as far as like the societal structure and everything else, but that goes back to what I said, like the economics portion. Like you could dive down, you could have a volume on suicidal empathy, an encyclopedia set, because of how it affects everyone differently in different ways, the domino effects and everything else. So I can't say that he covered everything, but he was direct enough on what he covered to get his point across.
Makes sense. I like it. Will, what do you think?
I'm a little conflicted on the book. So he did a good job of like defending free speech, and he's very much into like people should say things that are uncomfortable and difficult. I like that he challenges people like being conformist in people, like specifically ideological conformity. So he challenges that a lot, and that, like, he wrote about that quite a bit in his previous book, The Parasitic Mind, which is what I thought that this book was, but I didn't realize this book actually came out in 2026. So like it's just over 6 months old. I think it came out January 15th. But I thought that this book was his previous book that came out much earlier. But um, talking about ideological conformity and how that's like sort of kind of a lot to do with his previous book, how basically like mind viruses will catch on inside of a culture. So I like that. I like that he talks about evidence-based thinking rather than like the emotional stuff. And yeah, but like some of the stuff that is common criticisms of the book is like he'll overextend his application of evolutionary psychology into like these complex social issues. So whatever, and he does get really like politically charged, and so he can be quite combative when he's presenting his own personal ideas as an author. But and like all his discussion about like uh all the current like topical stuff was whatever. But like overall, I would say that the book is great to consume for its ideas and the notions and the it evokes. Like if you can push past the author's like emotional ranting
The
about like
whining, if you will.
the whining of Islam of like all the things that are wrong with Islam, which don't get me wrong, there's a ton of things wrong with Islam, but he just whines about it.
Yeah.
And then like all the Jew crap that like he spews in there. He's very like Israeli apologetic when it comes to the Israel Palestine thing, which is like, that's fine, that's his right. But he interjects a lot of that into the book, and I just like it was a bit of a turnoff for me, like just the politicization. And I get like a lot of it has to do with his own personal backstory as to why he was like forced out of Lebanon. But anyway, it was just like very like topical current history things. And yeah, like all in all, I would say that the book is it's a good consumption for those that don't know what's going on and that want a like a broader idea of things. And you can put yourself into the position of being like an evolutionary biologist a little bit better by reading this book and understanding these things. So that's my general thoughts. What about you, Z?
Well
What do you
said,
think?
sir. I think you had a really good point, which is you thought this was the other book, what is it,
Yeah.
Parasitic Mind?
Yeah,
I
Parasitic
think
Mind.
that book would probably actually answer a lot of the questions that I had earlier in the show, trying to figure out like the logical chain of events of like how a person gets to this point. Because I
Mhm.
think this is definitely more of like an end state book. Obviously, it came out like 6 months ago, so that makes sense.
Yeah, I think
As far as
have it.
my like,
Go
if
ahead.
really only have like a critique of the book and the solutions, it's that I think the author does a really good job of laying out and explaining the phenomena which he was set out to do, which is the suicidal empathy. That
Okay.
makes sense, and I think he does a great job. I think that when you get to these proposed solutions and the thing that is not covered in the book, I think because he's advocating for societal level change and change at the level of the federal government in the largest, most impactful country on the history of the planet. This is where you will see power dynamics and the power struggle and the Game of Thrones, if you will. This is where this operates at the highest absolute level. And there are absolutely strategies and kind of like tactics and like power warfare going on at that level that I think this book kind of overlooks a little bit, especially in the solutions category, because I don't think that everyone is a true believer or truly infected by the suicidal empathy, but I think that there are a lot of quote unquote useful idiots out there that are being manipulated by it into the phenomenon that he described. So a little more pessimistic on the solutions and how to get there, as was probably obvious during the segment where we are talking about the solutions there. But overall, I'm very happy with the book. I do want to go read Parasitic Mind now. I think that'll explain a lot of questions. And the overall concept, it makes perfect sense. And I think what we covered probably in the first half of the show, talking about like where is empathy best, where does it best work, that is probably It's less discussed in the book because this is really focusing on the issue at hand. But if you can take the core principles from the book and apply the empathy on small scale and relationship scale, I think it's actually probably very beneficial to a lot of folks just to get them to really think about it and just kind of like put it in the front of the brain instead of the back of the brain. So it's less reaction, more of actually thinking about what am I doing in my day to day life? What do I care about? What are the results that I want to see within like my family, my friends, my community at a very small scale? I think that's actually probably pretty helpful to folks.
Hell yeah.
Alrighty, tell you what, with that being said, though, it is time to do one of the things. So, Mr. Moonpilled Rational Optics, where can the folks find you? What do you got going on? And if you had to put this book on the 10,000 hours to mastery time scale, where would you put this book?
Let me answer the questions as best I can remember. So, if you guys can find me at the DGen Roundtable Telegram chat or the DGen Roundtable Book Club chat. I'm pretty much active in both for the most part.
Yes, sir.
Anything active is just mostly day-to-day life, friends, family, everything else that I really can't say right now, I'll tell you guys later. And as far as the 10,000 hours question, that's I can't tell you. Like I don't have enough of an opinion formulated to give that. I would say it's I'm not even gonna take a guess at that right now because otherwise I'm just gonna be lying or making stuff up.
There you go. He's an honest man, ladies and gentlemen. Look at that. Well said, sir. Alrighty, Mr. Will Stevenson, where can the folks find you? What do you got going on? And 0 to 10,000 hours, where does she go?
The folks at home can find me at the DGen Roundtable's Telegram, which I have decided to put in the chats for once in a very long time. So t.w/DRT join now is where you can find myself, Zenith, and Mr. Moonpilled Rational Optics. Or you guys can scan this QR code. It's right motherfucking. Let's see if I can point right at it. There, right there. I think I'm pointing at it. That's where you guys can find us on a scale of 0 to 10,000 hours. I don't really think this book needs to be read on a journey to excellence, but like if I was just to say like, yeah, you wanted some insight into the societal stuff at large, like this book doesn't give you a whole bunch of actionable things that you can do as an individual that will greatly improve your life, but it is good background information. And so for that, I would put it at like 4,000 hours. So like 2 years out of 5 on your journey of knowing nothing to excellence. I don't think it's absolutely necessary. It was a good read. It was an easy read, and it is read by Gad Saad, who has his own podcast. He's been on Rogan, I think 12 times, which he mentioned at least 3 times in the book that he was on his 11th or 12th guest starring on Rogan. So not that we're counting, but he is counting. So that was quite fun. Yeah, it's a good book. It's a good read. It's got good concepts, and like really it's nothing new to me. It's all information that I was pretty well aware of beforehand. But he puts it in a really good way, and he gives really good backing information to it. So that's what I think of the book. And yeah, you guys can find me here in the DGen Roundtable every Wednesday, Friday, and Sunday, by the way, starting at 8 p.m. Eastern. For next week's book club, we are going to be covering The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy by Douglas Adams. So
let's go.
We're going to start it, baby. It's the first book in the series. You got The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, The Restaurant at the End of the Universe and Everything, So Long and Thanks for All the Fish, and Mostly Harmless. There's a 6th book called Another Thing that was written by Ian Colfer after Douglas Adams' death. So, but we're going to start it just with The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, which is the first book in the series. So there you guys go. And also, Mr. Just Live asked for a question. What would you say the definition of suicidal empathy is from the point of the writer? It's when empathy becomes detached from wisdom, reciprocity, incentives, and self-motivation, and it can transform a moral strength into a civilizational weakness. So you take a good trait and you apply characteristics that are not purposefully suicidal, but end up with the result of being suicidal. So I guess homicidal empathy would be a better way to put it, because it's not murder, it's accidental. and it includes oneself. So maybe, I don't know. There's some words for it, but there you go. That's what I would say. What about you, Zenith? What did you think of the book? Scale it to 0 to 10,000, and where can the folks find you? What have you got going on?
I am actually I picked the number in my head purposefully before I heard the answers from you guys, but I actually ended up right around the same point as you, Will. I said
yeah?
5,000 hours because I think that this book definitely goes after the rest of all the philosophy books that we've covered, because this book does draw on slightly on some of the concepts that are mentioned in those ones. And then also, like you said, as far as Journey to Mastery, this one probably doesn't even fall on the time scale to be technical, but I'm putting it here because I think that that is a point where you've had some good experience, and it might be time to remind yourself to think about what are the things you care about, where you might be going too far in certain areas, and that kind of stuff. Overall, though, very happy with this book. Very thankful it was only a 6-hour read as opposed to some of the other ones that I have chosen myself. So thank you, Moonpilled, for not torturing us like I sometimes torture Will and myself. Is much appreciated. And by the way, excellent work at your podcasting skills right there. You gave the people the shout out for where they can find you and find us, which, by the way, again, for the third time, scan the QR code on the screen, join the DRT Telegram. Inside of there, you're going to find all of the ongoing chats, anything crypto, talking memes, anime, where they still continue to shame me for not finishing Free Run, but that's neither here nor there. Outside of that, we're going to be back on Sunday for the flagship news show. We did happen to have a Federal Reserve meeting coming up, so might have some clips for you there. And there may be even a special guest appearance of Uncle Z making his debut at the press conference as well. Outside of that, we got Whiskey Wednesday coming up next, and then after that, Friday, we have Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy with myself, Will, and probably anybody else that wants to show up, to be honest with you. Outside of that, though, I'm looking forward to it. I kind of realized I may have opened a whole can of worms with bringing up that topic, though.
Before you head out,
go ahead.
First off, thanks for bringing me on. But I'll be honest. I think after it's a theory of money and credit, I'm surprised you invited me on by recommending that book.
We had to cover that at some point, so you did good.
That's not on you. I'm pretty sure that was a me thing, and then you were probably got to it long before I did, and then I just, let's be honest here, is probably kind of doing that out of ego, being like, oh yes, it's a fundamental economics book. I have to read this so I can say that I read it. Oh God, why did?
Yeah, it's torture.
Yeah,
I can list about 3 books that have just been absolute murder and torture for most people that they don't even want to touch. But it's like, if you have that kind of itch, you need to read it.
Yeah, honestly, I still don't know if I would recommend that people go read that one. I would recommend go read the Spark Notes, like understand the concepts. Yes. Maybe find the excerpts and a few chapters that talk about the relevant things. But my gosh, she thick.
Yeah. A TLDR for that book would be quite appropriate.
Agreed. Alrighty. Anyways, folks, lastly, you can find me over on X and Instagram. Send me any funny posts, replies, comments, whatever you want. I love seeing all of it, and it actually does help me do show research, which is greatly appreciated, by the way, because there's a lot to sift through. But that is outside of what we're discussing here right now. Anyways, I want to thank you all very much for spending your valuable time here with us at the DGen Roundtable. As we often say, we know that time is your most valuable asset, and we appreciate you spending it right here with us. Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Zenith, that is Will, and that is our very beloved Moonpilled Rational Optics. But more importantly, you have been watching the DGen Roundtable. As the producer, I need to go ahead and get ready my trigger finger as we remind all the folks at home one last time to remember to DGen responsibly.